Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my feature author of the month of March, no other than Miss Angela Henry. And of course, award winning and best selling author.
Hello.
Welcome back, Miss Angela, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, I am Angela Henry, and I am the author of mysteries, thrillers, and urban fantasy. And this year, I will be celebrating my 20th anniversary as a published author. So, 20 years ago in May, my very first novel, The Company You Keep, which is the first book in my Kendra Clayton mystery series, was published. So, I can hardly believe it's been 20 years.
Certainly. So, because of that, we're gonna give you a cheering squad, Miss Angela. Thank you so much for those 20 years. You empower us. Thank you for your knowledge and wisdom you shared to us. Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Angela. So, what inspired you to start writing mystery and suspense novels?
Well, I've been an avid reader all my life. Um, at one time, I was really into romance, but then gradually I started reading mysteries, and I love mysteries, but I wasn't finding mysteries with people that look like me, people of color. So I was inspired to start writing my own mysteries featuring African American characters. So that's how I started writing mysteries.
Awesome. And how did the idea of Kendra Clayton first come to you?
Well, Kendra is she's kind of modeled after all the black women in my life. Um, I grew up in a small city in Ohio, and most of the books that I was reading were set in big cities. So, I don't know, I visited big cities, but I've always lived in smaller communities. And I went to college in a small college town. I live in a small college town. So when it came time to, write my own books, it just seemed natural to set my mysteries in a town like where I grew up, which is how I created the town of Willow, which is where my Kendra Clayton mystery series are set. I used to work for the city schools here in my city, so I thought I would give Kendra my old job. I used to work for a GED program for people who, didn't finish high school so they could get their high school education, which is GED here. So I gave her that job, and that's how the series started and it took off. It's at 6 books currently.
Miss Angela, so what is the most challenging part of writing your first book?
Well, it took me for 4 years to write my first book because I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never written a book before. And, I wrote when I could. And, sometimes I go weeks, even months without writing anything. But eventually, I kept at it. And 4 years later, I had a completed manuscript. So, it wasn't easy. It was kind of an endurance kind of experience, you know, just hanging in there and writing when I could. I didn't have an agent, I wasn't under a contract, so there was no timeline. So that was the challenge for me. How badly did I want to write this first book? So I just had to keep at it until it was done. So I think the challenge for me was there was no there was no one standing over me cracking the whip telling me to do it. I just, did it when I felt like it, when I was moved to do it. But eventually, 4 years later, I had a manuscript.
Nice. Awesome. So, how has your writing process evolved over the years?
Well, it's evolved. I usually start out with an outline. I'll outline, chapter by chapter what's, supposed to happen, throughout the book. I start out with a vague idea. And I usually know who did it before I start writing it. And usually I stick to about 80% of my outline. I don't stick to it 100%. Usually, uh, what I start out with and what I end up with is usually, a lot different. So it changes in the process. So, but I usually start with an outline. I'm definitely a plotter, so, and not a pantser. So I have to start out with that outline.
So let's talk about characters and stories of your novels. Kendra Clayton is such a relatable and witty protagonist. How much of her is inspired by you?
Well, like I said, I gave her my old job. I used to work for a GED program. So I gave Kendra my old job. Kendra and we share some of the same experiences, um, both being women of color, living in a small town. So, those kind of things are going to be the same. But, Kendra is one of those people who she acts very impulsively. She keeps getting sucked into these murder mysteries because, people she knows, like friends, family, they get, they're accused of murder or suspected or whatever, and then she just kind of dives in to help them. So the difference between me and Kendra is if this happened to my friends and family, I would call them a lawyer. I can't, I am not I'm not a detective. I can't help you that way. I'll do anything else for you, but I'm not a detective in real life.
Certainly. So, how do you approach writing strong, diverse, and realistic characters?
Just comes from a place of experience and what, I and other people have gone through. Um, drawing from some of those. Well, it can't be too personal because I don't want to get sued. But just trying to keep them realistic and relatable as people. Um, and basing their characteristics on some of the people that I know, like my mom and my aunts and my best friends, and a little bit of all of them are going into some of these characters. So that's kind of how I keep it relatable.
Definitely. So, what's your secret to balancing humor with serious themes in your mysteries?
That's kind of hard sometimes because, we're talking about murder mysteries. People are dying, and, obviously it's a very serious topic. But, this is a humorous mystery series. So it's just not like I'm making light of people's death or demise, but some of the situations surrounding it can definitely be humorous. So it can be, a tight walk, tightrope act, balancing, humor with serious issues. But I think I've been able to do it so far. I hope I can continue to balance that. So
Definitely.
I guess you have to ask the readers how well I do that.
Yes, indeed. So, do you have a favorite character you've written beside Kendra?
Uh, let's see. Kendra has a coworker. She's a part-time hostess at her uncle's restaurant. Her uncle has a restaurant, and she works there part-time as well as her teaching job. And there is a character named Joy who is also works at this restaurant, and they get along about as well as oil and water. They do not get along. Joy is the exact opposite of everything that Kendra is, and because of that, she's so much fun to write because she doesn't like Kendra. They do not like each other at all. So, having them writing scenes where they're bickering back and forth, that's a lot of fun. So I would say the character Joy.
Certainly. So, are there any settings in your novels based on real places or personal experiences?
Um, Not really. Um, I do, even though I've said I've put some characteristics of people I know in the books, I really do try and keep it separate from my personal life. Um, I can't really say that there's anything that aligns with anything sad in my real life or um, yeah, I can't really say that there's anything that aligns with anything in my life that's sad. I try and keep things as lighthearted as I can. So,
Certainly. So let's talk about the themes and representation of your novels. Your books often touch on community, identity, and justice. What themes are most important to you as a writer?
well, there's a big sense of community in my, especially my mystery series, because when Kendra is investigating these crimes, a lot of the information that she gets is from gossip. Gossip around town, beauty shop gossip, um, cafe, you know, people gossiping in local spots, churches. She gets a lot of it from, people she knows, like her grandmother. Because, when you live in a small town, everyone is just a couple people away from knowing everybody else in town. So
Yes.
community is a huge theme in my books, especially my Kendra books, because Kendra taps into a lot of that in order to get information to solve these crimes. So I would say community is a huge part.
So, how do you feel your work contributes to representation in the mystery and suspense genres?
Well, I think it represents a woman of color's experience living in a small town, um, living in her community. Uh, I don't really think there are a ton of other books like my Kendra series. I mean, I can think of maybe a few. Um, there's more. I mean, usually they're set in bigger cities. I don't think there's as many that are set in a small town setting. And I'd like to think that, Kendra fills a niche that's very needed because there just aren't a ton of books by Black authors that are. And my books aren't, I know the covers, I'm in the process of getting new covers for the 20th anniversary. And I know the covers kind of say that they're cozy mystery, but they're traditional mysteries. They're not cozy mysteries. So I think Kendra, my Kendra series fills a very unique need in the mystery genre.
Very well said. Miss Angela, very well said. Another cheering squad for you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. So, do you have a favorite character beside from Kendra that you told us before
Oh,
that you are in the future making?
you mean like a different series or whatever?
Yes, in the
Um,
future.
well, not really. I do have another series. It's kind of an urban fantasy series where it has like supernatural elements to it. Um, and it's a male character. His name is Xavier Knight. And he is a fallen angel who solves crimes in New Orleans. So, besides Xavier and Kendra, I'm not planning to write any more series anytime soon because I'm writing standalone thrillers. But I wouldn't rule out writing another series with a different character at some point. I just have to figure out who this character would be.
Certainly. So, what feedback have you received from readers that has stayed with you?
I've had a lot of readers, and this really, touches my heart when they especially since I write the humorous mystery series. I've had a lot of people who told me their books helped get them through a hard time. Um, one woman wrote and told me that she, her mom was in the hospital sick, and my books, the humor in my books helped her get through that really hard time, and that means a lot to me as an author. You really want your books to touch people, even if they're, just kind of silly and humorous. And, I don't think my books are silly, but it really makes me feel good when people tell me that their books help them in that way.
Certainly. And thank you so much for empowering us, Miss Angela. Keep up the good work. And looking forward for more and more empowering award-winning piece. So, how do you hope readers feel after finishing one of your books?
Oh, I want them to be, um, I want them to be able to figure out who did it because, I think really try hard to put enough clues along the way that if they're paying attention, they can follow and they can figure it out for themselves. And, I mean, if I surprise them, that's great. And, they were completely caught off guard, that's great too. But, I read mysteries because I like to follow the clues and figure out who did it. So I kind of like to, do that for my readers so they can figure it out too. So I'm hoping that at the end, when the culprit is revealed, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that is so and so because of this, that, and the other." So I like to leave the breadcrumbs so they can figure it out.
So, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own novel, especially mysteries?
I would say be an avid reader of the kind of book that you want to write, so all the different things that go into the genre. Um, Make sure you do your research. If you're going to make your main character a nurse, make sure research what nurses do so you can accurately depict the career and profession of whoever your main character is, because readers will, if you don't get it right, they will let you know, and it might take away from their reading experience. So do your research, be an avid reader of the kind of books that you want to write, and don't give up. Just keep trying, and just know that you're going to, experience rejection, because that just goes along with being a writer. So
Yes, stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, 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 and share to the world, just like Miss Angela Henry, who knows you will become like her. Award winning and best selling author. So, what would be your short term and long term goals in writing, Miss Angela?
I just keep writing more books. I have a couple more books on my current contract with my publisher. I would like to start writing screenplays in the future. Um, but just to keep on writing and
Keep
creating
on
stories.
writing. Yes, keep writing and share to the world. Let's talk about expanding your work. Have you ever considered writing in different genre like historical fiction or fantasy?
Not really. I kind of I think I've kind of hit my stride with the thrillers, and I mean, I'm not saying that never. I'll never say never. Um, but not currently. Maybe sometime in the future down the road, but I think I'm just going to stick with my thrillers and my mysteries and my urban fantasy.
Good luck for that, Miss Angela. And what books or authors have inspired you writing style and storytelling?
Um, I have a few authors that really inspired me when I first got started. One of them is an author named Walter Mosley. He wrote a book called Devil in a Blue Dress, which got turned into a movie with Denzel Washington. He's an amazing, amazing author. He's really inspired me. And then there was another author um, named Barbara Neely, and she had a series of books, and her main character's name was Blanche White, and she was a domestic who solved crimes, and she really inspired me. And there's another author named Valerie Wilson Wesley, and she had a series with a detective named Tamara Hale, and she really inspired me. So all three of those amazing authors really inspired me to write my own mysteries.
So, do you see any of your books being adapted for film or TV in the
Oh,
future?
I can see all of them because I would love to see, you know,
Kendra,
books adapted for TV or the big screen. You know, I would love
definitely.
that.
Yes, the Family Lies series on Netflix. Imagine. Amazing. Don't you think, Miss Angela?
Oh, I would love to see that.
That's awesome. So, what advice will you give again for those aspiring people want to give their shot in the book industry?
Do your research. Keep on writing. Know that it's not going to be an easy path. Um, one thing I will say is when I first started, you had to pick a path. You had to be either traditionally published by a publisher or you could do self-publishing. And self-publishing when I first started 20 years ago was not popular or respected. But now it's a very viable path. So you don't have to pick one or the other. I do both. I have like the books on the screen, The Perfect Affair, The Family Lies, and Her Pretty Lies. Those are books that are published by my publisher called Storm Publishing. But everything else that I've published, I'm self-publishing. I got the rights back to my Kendra books from my old publisher. The rights reverted back to me, so I self-published those too. So you can be a hybrid author. You can do both. But just know that whatever path you pick, you're going to have to put the work in, you're going to have to do your homework, you're going to have to do your research. And especially if you self-publish or you're published by a traditional publisher, once you've got that first book out there, you're considered a business. You've got an author business now and you need to treat it as such. So yeah, you need
Yes,
to know everything that goes into what you're trying to do because there's no easy path. You're going to have to put in the work no matter what path you choose.
definitely. Once you publish a book, people, you're an entrepreneur. So, Miss Angela, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, and it's fifth season, people, fifth season with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letters senders all over the world. So please do listen, Food 101, wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Angela, what next for you? Any upcoming releases or new series you're excited
I
about?
am currently writing a book now that for my publisher, it is tentatively called The Other Girl. And it's supposed to be out in the fall. As a matter of fact, I'm getting the finishing touches on it and getting ready to turn it into my editor. But that should be out this fall. Like I said, my Kendra series is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So I've had all the covers redone. So I'm rebranding all the covers and that will be re-released also this year. And I think I'm going to try and write another book in my Xavier Knight series. It will be book 3. So I got a lot coming up.
Yes, Miss Angela Henry, award winning and best selling author, my feature author of the month of March. Can you please support her and give her more support so that all the books that will coming will be award-winning and best-selling novels. So, Miss Angela, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
My books can be found, information about my books can be found on my website, angelahenry.com. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and I would love to meet you. If you'd like to reach out, ask me anything. I'm happy to answer your questions. And thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on the show.
You are most welcome. Again, people, let's support Miss Angela Henry because if you support her, as I said, more and more and more award winning and best selling novels to come. So, Miss Angela, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.